Hey everyone, this is Alfredo with the Reality Podcast, and today we're going to be talking about self-love. The reason I want to talk about self-love is because I keep hearing this idea, this kind of theology that's been in the church that you got to love yourself before you love others, and I think that's just false. I think that's bad hermeneutics. I think it's bad teaching. I think it's bad for the church. I don't think it's helpful. I think it's kind of going against what God has called us to do. And I just want to nip it in the butt before this teaching gets big and we just kind of fall into this. In 2 Timothy, when Paul talks to Timothy, he says in the latter days, people are going to be lovers of self. And it's not a good thing. Loving yourself is never a good thing in the Bible. And I really want to get into that because I just feel like our generation I feel is a little more gracious and peaceful and loving. And I think we're falling into too much so, because we also need to be just and stern and bold, but while being loving and gracious and peaceful. But it's the balance, and I think this is a correction from the imbalance that we have, and it's not even like don't love people too much. It's don't fall into that lovey that affection-based love. It's because the word love doesn't mean affection. Like when the Bible references the word love, it's seldom talking about that. It sometimes talks about that, but most of the time it's talking about a different thing, especially in the verses that people use. So let me get into the verses. The verse that people love to use for self-love is Mark 12:30-31. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. The second is you shall love your neighbor as yourself. There is no other greater commandment than these. And they'll use this verse and they'll say, well, it says it right there, like, we got to love ourselves before so that we can love others. You know, if I don't love myself, how do I know how to love others? And I think that's just terrible hermeneutics. It's terrible. It's not. That's literally not what it's talking about. So the context behind the verse is Pharisees and Sadducees are confronting Jesus, and they're like, well, you gotta, if you are who you say you are, you need to figure out these hard problems that they didn't even know how to deal with. They were in division because of these problems, because of like being married in heaven, or do we even go to heaven? Is that like a real thing? Do we live after our death and stuff like that? The Sadducees and the Pharisees back in the day. And so Jesus was going through all these teachings, and he would answer all the questions for them, and sometimes they didn't believe him, but he would stump them on their answer. Like he would answer very wisely, and they had nothing else to say. And then one Pharisee went up to him, genuinely asking to see if he is who he says he was, and he said, what's the greatest commandments? Or what's the greatest commandments? And then Jesus says, the first is to love God, second, love your neighbor as yourself. And so these are the biggest commandments that we have. These should be taken seriously, because like all the other commandments revolve around these two. And I feel like what we're doing in today's world is we're twisting the scripture. We're making it about ourselves rather than what Jesus commanded us to do, love others. And I'm going to go over a bunch of verses where it concludes that we're supposed to not really care about ourselves as much as the Western world, as the world will make you think that you should. So when it says love others as yourself, I think it's inferring that you already love yourself. It's not saying love others and yourself. It's simply saying you love yourself already, and bring that to other people. Bring that love, let's just say for the sake of the argument, that love to other people. And then it's like, well, what does that mean then? It's some people are like, well, some people will go against that and say, well, I don't love myself. And then I ask them, like, what does that mean? Like, what do you mean you don't love yourself? Like you're not infatuated with yourself. You don't like yourself. You don't like maybe your appearance or your situation or your circumstance. And I just don't think that's what that word was talking about. And I know it's not, because there's a couple verses that will show us what love means. In Ephesians 5:28-29, I believe Paul wrote this. He says, for no one ever hated his own body, but he nourishes it, protects it, and cherishes it, just as Christ does the church. Even so, husbands should and are morally obligated to love their own wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. And so Paul is assuming that you've never hated your body, that you protect it, you cherish it, you nourish it, you eat. When you're hungry, you eat. When you're cold, you put on clothes. When you're when you're outside and it's dangerous, you shelter yourself. When you're sick, you take care of yourself. You get rest and you go to bed. And I think this is what that word means. I think that's what that love is embodying, is the taking care of yourself, is looking the good after. It's like he says no one hates their own body. He says it right there. He says no one thinks, I mean, it's the only body we have. So for you to hate the only thing that you have, and you can't get another one. Because when you hate something, you usually love something else, but you can't, because you simply cannot have another body. It's impossible. It's physically impossible. And so let's go around this idea for right now, and I'm going to go to a different verse. It's going to be John 13:34-35. And it says, Jesus is saying this, "A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another just as I have loved you. You also are to love one another. By this all people will know that you are my disciples, if you have loved one another." And with this, Jesus commands us to love each other as Jesus loved us. And that's I think that's what it goes over. When you experience God's love, it's something that doesn't come from yourself. It's something that comes from Him. And it's an overflow of that extension. It's not an overflow of how much I care for myself. It's an overflow of how much God cares for you. And we see this in 1 John 4:19. He says, "We love because He loved first." The love that we can give others, love others, that's what the commandment is due to Jesus loving us first. And He loves everyone. He says that. He loves every single person. And that's why He died on the cross for everyone. He died so that everyone has access to the sanctification through the cross. And I think this should carry some gravity with it, that you should know that Jesus died for you, and He wants you to love others like that. He wants you to pick up your cross daily. I'm sure you've heard that. And sacrifice yourself for others. It's not pick up your cross so you can look buff or you feel cool, or it's none of that. It's so that you can love others. That's the commandment He gives us. It's the second greatest commandment in the entire book. And Jesus says this other places, that the greatest form of love is dying for someone, is putting your life out for someone else. And I fully believe that's what we're meant to do. We're lambs unto the slaughter. We're not meant to go, suicidal, but we are supposed to be willing to sacrifice our lives for others. And I think when you put loving yourself first, you start to carry value in your own well-being, so much so that you wouldn't sacrifice that for others. And I think that goes against the grain of what Jesus is teaching us. Once you put value into yourself, it's gonna be hard to suffer, because you don't want to bring down your value. You put so much value into yourself, you don't want to go against it. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. It wouldn't make sense for that to be the case, for us to have a teaching that puffs us up just so that we are crumble down when we have to give up our well-being for someone else. And another good verse that goes over this is Acts 20:24. Paul says, "But I do not consider my life as something of value or dear to me, so that I may finish my course and ministry which I've received from the Lord Jesus." And that's huge, I think. He says, I don't consider my life any value. How would you love yourself and consider your life no value? How do those two go together? And we're supposed to look like Paul, because he looked like Christ. And we're supposed to look like Christ. We're supposed to be the ambassadors for Christ on earth. We're supposed to be like Him so that people can see Him through us in mass. Like in numbers, I mean, not in Catholic mass. And so the reason Paul's doing this in Acts is because the Holy Spirit told him he's going to suffer. And so instead of putting joy into himself, which I think that's what loving yourself does, he puts the joy in doing the things for God. And so what he has to do is consider himself zero value, so that his joy can rest on the value that he's providing for others. And so you see what I mean? It's a math problem. It's like if you're putting 100 points into yourself, and you think that your 1 point that you're taking out of yourself goes on other people. It's not like that. It's what if you could have 0 points on yourself and put 100 points into others? How much more beneficial could that be? And so I'm not trying to put people down who have like depression and anxiety and insecurities and that are suicidal. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to hush that or nothing like that. I know that those are real problems, but as Christians, we need good theology. We need that, and otherwise, I mean, maybe that's the reason why we have so many people that are oppressed and whatnot, because they think they have to love themselves, and they don't do good works for other people, which do make you feel good. A lot of times when you do something for other people, it makes you feel better. It gets you out of your head. So depression does, it sucks you into your own head. And when you go out and you don't think about yourself all the time, I don't know, you can just get out of your own head. And I think that can help so many people. And I think our theology that's been corrupted, I think, by Satan, is kind of deterring people from seeing like the true meaning of that passage, the true benefit of that passage. So let's get deeper into depression, right? I read this, I think it was on Yale, the University Yale is on their website, and they said that a big cause of depression is due to anxiety. It's due from high stress levels, whether from a baby or whether from an adult. It doesn't really matter, but for whatever reason, high stress causes these connections in your brain to disconnect. And so usually depression, people won't say they're sad. I mean, that could be something, but usually they'll say they don't feel anything. And scientists say that when high stress levels, when you're always stressed out, these connections in your brain start tearing, and then they don't connect no more. And then you lose emotion, you lose emotions essentially, which causes depression. It causes that numb feeling that people get. And there's other causes of it too as well, like chemical imbalances and genetic, you get something passed down from your parents and stuff like that. So it's not always that, but so it's a big one though. Yale has said it's one of the top contenders. And the funny thing is the Bible has ways to go against that. It says, do not stress over anything. Jesus tells us, don't stress over anything. And I think that's huge. I think the ability to not worry about anything at all, and being able to know that we're like the birds who do not sow nor reap, but God feeds them, it's so comforting. It's like, no matter what I do, like God's gonna take care of me. It's a promise to those who follow Christ that He's gonna take care of us. And I think when you get rid of that stress level, when you follow true Christian teachings, I think a lot of issues go away. And I truly believe that. I think that's why I feel this is such a good teaching, not for just people that are all into themselves. I think it's good for them, but I also think it's good for if you're depressed, if you're thinking about self-deletion, like some people might say. Jesus can take that from you. He can take that numb feeling. He can heal you. He can heal your mind, and He's done it for me too. I was in a situation not too long ago where I didn't want to be here anymore, and selfishly, I was gonna just take my own life and just end it. I mean, because I was just going through too much. I felt like it was too much pain. I didn't care how my mom felt or my brothers felt or anyone. I didn't care about nothing. I just cared about myself. I just cared, I just wanted to get out of this pain. And I think for people who've gone through that, where someone they love does that, I'm sure they do feel the hurt. I'm sure maybe they won't say they're selfish. Maybe they won't go to that extent. They'll say oh, they were selfish for doing that. But I'm sure that feeling is there. And I know that suicide, technically it's selfish in a sense. It has to be, because you're putting your own emotions above everyone else's. And at the end of the day, I don't think that's a Christian thing to do. We're supposed to care about others before ourselves. And so some of you may say, because this happened in the Bible, so let's just say, you might say this, who's my neighbor? Who is that? Jesus goes over this in Luke 10:30-37. It's a story. So Jesus replied, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he encountered robbers who stripped him of his clothes, beat him up, went their way, leaving him half dead. Now, by coincidence, a priest was going down the road, and when he saw him, he passed by the other side. He walked away. Likewise, a Levite also came down to the place and saw him and passed along the other side. But a Samaritan who was traveling came upon him, and he saw him, and he was deeply moved with compassion. And he went to him, bandaged him up, poured oil and wine on them, soothed and disinfected his injuries. He put him on his own pack animal and brought him to an inn to take care of him. On the next day, he took out 2 denarii, which is 2 days' wage, and he gave them to the innkeep and said, take care of him, and whatever you spend, I will pay you when I return. Which of these 3 do you think proved himself to be the neighbor of the man who encountered robbers. He answered, the one who showed compassion and mercy to him. Then Jesus said to him, go and constantly do the same. So essentially anyone is our neighbor. Everyone that we're interacting with, that we can help, that we engage with, that's the one that we're supposed to love. We're supposed to love everyone, anyone around us, greater than ourselves. Or maybe that's too far, but love each other as ourselves. Take care of the essential needs of others, the poor, the orphans, the widows. It tells us multiple times that we're supposed to consider other people's lives more valuable than us, and don't have favoritism, because that causes the pride issue. It's, well, there's more value in this person because they can get me this, or there's more value in this person because they're rich, and stuff like that. And the Bible and God always goes against that idea. It goes against that grain. And for some reason, we just think that it's okay to play favorites and to put ourselves above others, and to make sure that we're good and healthy and set and free and of debt and all this stuff before we help others. And we don't see that in the Bible very much. I mean, even when Jesus is there's this time where Jesus sees a rich man give a bunch out of his abundance. He gives a bunch of money to the church out of his abundance. And then he sees this poor old lady give her last 2 cents that all she had to live on. That's the key phrase. All she had to live on, she gave it to the church. And he said, this woman is more blessed than the others. And I think that's such a great teaching. It's like, it's so radical. It's like, we know God's going to provide for our needs, so we don't need to think about ourselves so much. We don't need to always think, oh, well, I needed this so I can help others. Oh, I need to be a millionaire so I can help my parents. It's just selfish desire. It's just selfish ambition that's causing you to think that way. And this self-love theology and teaching we have is garbage. I think it's awful. I think it's literally worthless. And I'm going to go over a bunch of verses that hopefully just nail in the coffin, and so that I hope you're convicted. I mean, if you think that that's a good teaching, I pray that if your teachers are teaching this, or if your pastors preaching this, have grace on them. Obviously, some people I just don't think they think about it too much. It's a worldly teaching, really it is, and the church usually follows the world sometimes. And that's what happens. We kind of fall into the patterns of the world. And sometimes we don't think it's corruption. We're like, oh, like this is a good teaching, let's teach on it. But I want to stick to the Bible. I want to read verses and follow what God told me to do. So Matthew 16:24-25. Then Jesus told his disciples, if anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake, Jesus' sake, will find it. And so Jesus is obviously telling us to deny ourselves, pick up a cross. A cross is a torture weapon. Pick up your torture weapon and live for others daily. Sacrifice yourself daily. 2 Timothy 3:2 says, for people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy. Paul's telling this to Timothy, and it's just a warning that it's obviously right here. It's literally clear as day. People will be lovers of self. It's a bad word. It's a bad teaching. It's not a good title to love yourself. It's not a good title. And I'm sick of Christians thinking that that's what we need to do. That needs to be the precursor to loving others. It's literally pride. It's literally the Western capitalism mentality. I'm not against capitalism as a whole. I'm just sick of the Western culture that we've corrupted the church with. 1 Corinthians 10:24, let no one seek his own good, but the good of his neighbor. And right here, clear as day, let no one seek his own good. How do you put love yourself and then love others when this verse clearly says, let no one seek his own good, but the good of his neighbor? You're going to seek your own good. You're going to do it. You're going to feed yourself. You're hungry, you're going to feed yourself. It's just going to happen. You're cold, you're going to put on clothes. It's just going to happen. You're going to look for clothes. Maybe you don't have those things, but you're going to look for it. You're going to find a way to get it, and you're probably going to get it, more than likely, most people. Ephesians 5:21, submitting to one another out of reverence for Christ. We are called to submit to one another, putting others' needs before our own, out of reverence to Christ. If Jesus is your God, and he commands you, he gave a new commandment, he commands you to love other people like he loves you, then do it for him. Don't do it because you feel like it. do it for him out of reverence, because he's a king. Imagine going to the king and be like, you know what? I don't feel like it. I don't really want to. I'm gonna go take a nap. I mean, we don't have kings. I mean, I don't have a king right now. I have a president, but I don't think it goes well. You know what I mean? But we have a gracious king, so it's different. And I want to go back to Timothy, because there's a list, right? So lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, and unholy. I really believe, if you guys are paying attention to the video, I want you guys to go over those words and look at them and say, am I any of these? If you love money, if you're proud, and some people are like, oh, well, and this, I'm telling you, this word, love, it's the semantics. It's like, well, I don't love money. You know, I don't put money above God. I don't think it's that. I think it's simply, do you seek more money? Do you seek more money? Like, kind of in general, I think that's a little radical. Probably not that, but it's like, you got to really check your heart on that one when you're seeking more money. If you're seeking more money in general, check your heart on that one, because you could be doing it for a good reason. Like, oh man, like my mom's sick, I need to raise some money. That's fine. But I feel like a lot of us are not doing that. I think we're just kind of like, I need $5 billion so I can help people. It's like, no, you don't. This woman gave out of 2 pennies, and Jesus says she's more blessed than everyone else. So don't act like you want more blessings from God, or don't act like you're doing it for God when he says to give just out of what you have. And on that note, I mean, even Paul receives from the church, I forgot which church, but let me see, I'm gonna look for it. In 2 Corinthians, so the Corinthian church, 2 Corinthians 8, 1-4, he says, we want you to know, brothers, about the grace of God that has been given among the churches of Macedonia, or maybe, for in a severe test of affliction, their abundance of joy and their extreme poverty have overflowed into wealth of generosity on their part. For they gave according to their means, as I testify, and beyond their means, of their own accord, begging us earnestly for the favor of taking part in the relief of the saints. They gave beyond what they had. Same thing from the woman. She had 2 cents to live on. That's all she had. She's old. She probably can't go to work. And she gave all she had. She gave above her means. That's giving above your means. And it's looked at as a good thing. I don't think that we need to be rich to give. I don't think we need to be successful to evangelize. I don't think we need to have millions of followers to get people to God. I think we need to start doing stuff right where we are. And we can see this with the Christians, with the first Christians, that they had this mentality. They loved others before themselves. In Acts 2, 44-45, it says, and all who believed were together and had all things in common. And they were selling their possessions and belongings and distributing the proceeds to all as any had need. And, you know, this is like first grade communism. However, it works. Like when everyone looks after the good of each other, it's such a beautiful world to live in. It's like you don't have to worry. I mean, the world, I would say, if you don't have God and you don't have Christian brothers and sisters around you, I would say, yeah, be selfish. Like, yeah, take care of yourself and whatnot, because who's looking after you? If you don't believe in God, I mean, you have to be selfish on some level, but that's where God comes in. We're different. We don't need to look after ourselves. We look after others, and God looks after us every single time. In Acts 7:58-60, Stephen, my bad, he's dying, and then he's getting, I believe, stoned to death by the people he's trying to preach to. He's trying to preach to these people to save their souls. And then as he's falling on his knees in worship, he cried out loud, Lord, do not hold this sin against them. Do not charge them. When he said this, he died. He fell asleep, it says. So as he's getting stoned, same thing with Jesus. Jesus did the very similar thing. As Jesus was being crucified, he prayed for the people crucifying him. He prayed for their salvation. He prayed for his enemies. He looked after people in a very bad situation. So I don't think you have to be in a good situation to look after people. And that's one of my big lessons that I'm trying to get to you guys. You don't need to be in an ideal situation to love others. You never do. Jesus was the worst situation. Naked, beaten beyond recognize, humiliated, and being literally tortured to death. And he still looks after others. He still asks his disciple to take care of his mother. He's still looking after his mother. He's still he he talks to the older ladies crying for him and telling them, like, like there's a time coming where Jerusalem's gonna fall, and you need to be ready for that. And he's praying for the enemies. I mean, it's just all over. We don't need to be in a good situation to love our enemies. We never do. And I think that's a teaching we need to take to heart. We need to be radical about the way we love others. Radical about that, radical about the way we love God, and God will take care of the rest. He says it. He says, do not be anxious about anything, but when you seek after the kingdom first, and God will provide all these other things. So obviously I'm going against the grain, right? America has this teaching. Everyone's teaching. I haven't met a church that hasn't had this teaching. Even good churches where I feel like there's great pastors, and they'll just kind of shoot this out there. I'm like, what the heck? Like I just don't think they're thinking about it that much. I really don't. And I think it's a trick from the devil. I think it's twisting scripture. The devil did this to Satan. He twisted scripture. He makes things sound like they're different. People will say, like love neighbors as yourself, and then we'll twist it. Well, I gotta love myself first. We're twisting it as the devil. We're doing literally what the devil did to Jesus when he fasted in the desert for 40 days. And I don't want to be associated with him, because it doesn't end well for him. We have his ending in the Bible, and hell was specifically built for him and his angels. And so, okay, well, what about if I have dependents? What if I'm responsible for people? What about if my household, I'm a man, I need to take care of my family? What if I'm a pastor, I need to take care of my flock? What if I'm a boss, I need to take care of my employees? That gets a little trickier. That does. I would say so. But still, you don't need to look after yourself. You need to look after the people that you're in charge of. Be a servant. The leader among you is the servant of all, or something like that. I forgot the real verse. Like, I'm bad with words, but Jesus says, if you want to be the leader, you got to be the servant. And so don't worry about yourself. Don't think I need to have $1 billion so I can get employees and take care of them. No, just serve to the best of your ability. God will handle the rest. And that's what I want us, because I think when we're so focused on self, we don't have much fruit. We're reducing fruit. And I think we think we're getting more fruit, but I mean, really test yourself. Really test, how much fruit am I getting from this? You have to have a humble heart to do it, I believe. Because otherwise you're going to make up so many things. You're going to have so many excuses or pretend that you have fruit. And you really have to sit down. I want you to sit down and think, what fruit am I getting from being selfish? That's what it is. Self-love is selfish. It's putting yourself forward. It's not good. And another thing on that topic, I want to talk about marriage, because marriage is a little tricky. From what I've been married for 3 years now, and I know this, if your partner isn't on board with this, if they're not radically willing to sacrifice their comfortability, their money, their themselves for others, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for you to do the same, because Paul says we have this division once we get married. He says it's better not to marry because of this division, that we're going to want to please our wives. And same thing with wives. The wives are going to want to please their husbands. And our minds are going to be different, or are going to be split between pleasing God and pleasing our wives. And he doesn't necessarily say it's a bad thing, but he says it's just going to happen. And I think that's true. It's just going to happen. And so if your wife is selfish and isn't willing to sacrifice themselves for others, it's going to be tough for you to do that, because your body is theirs and their body is yours. That's why I think you got to be wise when you make that decision to get married. But say you're in a marriage and they're not Christian, just do what you can. Like I said, do what you can in the position you're in. Don't look for a higher position. It says that somewhere in the Bible. I need to do more studying on it to make sure it means that, because I hate when people take verses out of context and whoa, this is my point, so this verse sounds like my point, and so we're going to talk about it like what point. I don't think that's true. There's so much wind. Sorry about that. I'm at a beach. So much wind. But if you are married, make sure don't stumble your partner. If you're the wife and your partner doesn't make that much money and you want more money and you don't need it, and you're staying afloat, but you want a BMW or a Bugatti or whatever, I don't think we're not supposed to cause each other to stumble. And so if you're making your partner more self-ambitious, a lot of people will exalt that. A lot of people will be like, yes, you're doing good. You're being a good American. And it's just not, you're not being a good Christian. I don't believe so. Sacrifice yourself for others. Give out of what you have. make sure you don't think of yourself too highly, because you are, and that's the thing too. That's the thing as well. You are precious to God. You are very valuable. He died for you. He died for you. However, in hierarchy speaking, you're below God, but He died for you. Why did that happen? It's because we're supposed to do the same thing for others. It's a standard that He set for us so that we can do it for others. So now some might say, well, what about me? I deserve to care about myself because no one else has, no one else will. Well, if you're a Christian, you must know that God did. God cares about you. God looks after you. God will provide for you in all situations, and the people below you. He does that. But if you don't believe in God, yes, I agree. No one, if you think there is no God, if you don't believe in Jesus, if you don't believe that Jesus died for you, I would have to agree that you're gonna have to look after yourself because no one is gonna care about you. Not in the way you need it to. Not in the way Jesus can. Not in the way Jesus can. No one's gonna care about you that much. And so, if you're not Christian, I'm not supporting selfishness, but it makes sense. Logically, worldly speaking, and I think that's why we have it in Christian church today, it makes sense. It makes sense that you need to look after yourself. But we're Christians, guys. We don't need to. God has us. God gets our revenge for us. God provides our needs for us. He can do miracles for us. He can do things that the world can't do for us. And that's the message we have. We have that hope. We have, after we're dead or after we die, we're gonna go see Him again. We're gonna be reunited. We have this internal hope, and we have God with us the entire way there. And it's just like, what other bliss do you want? You know what I mean? And that's why I'm just hoping that, if anyone here it came to this video and you're wherever you are at, I just really hope that you can see where I'm coming from. And if you're gonna argue against my points, I just want to see, like, where are you arguing from? In the comments, you can talk to me. I'll definitely comment back. I don't have too many people commenting, so yeah, just let me see your concerns. If you guys don't think I'm right or have verses that you want to talk on, I have a bunch of more notes in my phone. It's just I usually go over them quickly, so I miss some, and so I'll post them down in the description, and so you can see all my notes and all the data that I have. I just really want Christians to be united in good theology. That's like one of my main goals for this podcast. Is I see bad teachings everywhere, and I'm sick of it. I really am. When I became Christian, I was a radical Christian. I didn't go to a church specifically, but I was radical. I was reading my Bible. I was looking at different sects of Christianity: Catholicism, Orthodox, Protestantism, non-denominational. I was looking at all. I was really about it, and I missed that fire. I missed that fire for God, and I think we can get that back. And I'm trying to get that sparked back through this podcast to you guys as well. I want people are always like, let's do a revival, and then we do the same thing we've done for 10 years. It's like, let's do some real revival, man. Let's get for real about it. Finally, you know what I mean? Let's stop pretending. Let's stop being selfish and pretending that we're Christian. Let's stop being proud and pretend that we're just honoring God with how cool we are. Like, no, like, come on, dude. Like, we're supposed to be humble. We're supposed to be servants of all. We're not supposed to be cool. Paul says somewhere where, like, if Christ never rose up, like, we're supposed to be the most pitiful things on the earth, because, like, we're doing all this, and it would be worthless if Christ didn't rise. And and so I think that's where we're supposed to be looked at. Like, to the world, I mean, without Christ, we are pitiful. We're supposed to be that way, and I think that's a good thing. But with Christ, we have the only answer. We have the only key. We're the only light, and I think we should take that seriously. If you guys reached this far, I'm so grateful. I'm glad. I don't know how long this one was. I hope it wasn't too long. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm gonna start doing more of these every week. I'm gonna try to do one every week, and different locations, obviously. If you can tell, hopefully this one's not, the audio is not shot. I can probably tweak it a little bit, so we'll be kind of good there. But today I went solo. Next time I will be with a person, definitely 100%. I will be with either a music director, so that's cool. We're gonna talk about creatives, or I will be with my friend who's been lagging on me, Frank. So everyone knows it's you. No, he's cool. I like him. And so we're gonna start doing more person to person, which I prefer. I think these teachers are gonna be cool. I want to do more, but I want to do more person to person. See what kind of ideas I can get with a different person. And so I'm just grateful you guys are here. I'm grateful you guys listen all the way. If you guys could subscribe or leave a like, that would be super cool. Because then I want this channel to grow. I really do. I mean, honestly, I do. Because I feel like these teachings are beneficial. I really do. And so I'm sharing them with everyone I know. And so I think they're good. And the location is just a plus. You know what I mean? I'm a cinematographer. That's what I'm aspiring to be. So why not? You know, use my skills, use my creative skills to God's glory. You know. So, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. See you guys in the next one.